Hi, this is Rock. Let's take a look at VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, and XLOOKUP. VLOOKUP is a vertical lookup, HLOOKUP is a horizontal lookup, and XLOOKUP is the new function, relatively new function that can do either vertical or horizontal, and it also has some other features about it that make it so that XLOOKUP is now what I use instead of VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP, which I used to use all the time. But happily now there's this replacement. The limitations that I'll show you from VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP will make you happy as well that XLOOKUP is now available. But you'll still want to know how VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP work because they're probably out there in spreadsheets you may run into and you'll want to understand how they work. Let's make a sequence of 30 rows. I'm going to see if I can think of different vehicle brands here. Let's see. We've got Okay, I'm sure I forgot one of your favorites in the list. Let's make this a data validation where we say we've got a list and that list is these numbers. So if I choose a number here, what I want is the car that corresponds to that number to come back. So I can say VLOOKUP. I'm going to look up this in the table array of this, and the column index number, which is what I want it to return. I want it to return column 2. The first column is just the number that I already have here. The second column is the one that has the name of the car model. 8 is Genesis. I change this to 13. 13 is Kia. Change this to 25, and that's Saturn. Okay, so that's what the VLOOKUP does there. We could have a VLOOKUP combined with a rand between. Let me have a little more distance here. We could have a random number here that says equals rand between, and I could have 1 and 30, in which case I can do a VLOOKUP here, just like this one. Instead of doing the lookup on E4, I could do it on G4. In which case, every time I hit calculate, it will find the number and bring me back one of those, which means I can grab this, paste it here, and create a list of randomized data. So that's something that I've been looking forward to showing you. That's with VLOOKUP. HLOOKUP is the same thing. Let me do a thing here where I just make all this go to the side here across the top. If I paste here and I paste the values and I paste it in transpose, that goes that way. And then if I do the same thing here, paste that and transpose that, there we go. Now I can have the lookup do the same thing from this number, but instead of it being a VLOOKUP, it can be an HLOOKUP. And instead of this, I can use this. With HLOOKUP, instead of it being a column index, this is a row index number. So we're going with the second row in the reference table that we are referring to. Here's the table, and the second row is the one that we're going to return based on this N4, which actually, let me make it be Q4 now that I have this with its own. And I can paste this down. And now I've got one that's being generated from this top list. And I can show you that by changing out this Cadillac for Chevrolet. And you see here, Chevrolet is 4, and the 4 in this one, do we have one? We do not have a 4. Well, let's hit calculate. There we go. We have this one saying Cadillac still, and this one saying Chevrolet. And that's because they're using two different tables. The one on the right is using the HLOOKUP, and the one on the left is using the VLOOKUP. Okay, one of the challenges with VLOOKUP is if instead of the vehicles, I wanted to look up the country where it was from. And let's say I put it over here. Let's say Acura was Japan, and I'm guessing on these. With that list of very questionable data, I wanted to prove the point of how VLOOKUP is challenged. Because if I wanted to do the same thing and say, let's have this number drive a VLOOKUP, but instead of looking up the make of the vehicle, I want to look up the country. Well, I can't add this in here because country is to the left of my number. So I can't refer to it. Whatever I'm looking up has to be on the left, and then whatever I respond with has to be either that same column or another column in that array that I indicate. So VLOOKUP can't go outside of a left to right orientation, which is extremely frustrating. HLOOKUP is the same way, but just in reverse, that you can't have any references above, and if I just insert a thing here, you can't have references above the thing you're looking up. It has to start here and then go this way, go down for HLOOKUP to work. So XLOOKUP changed all that. With XLOOKUP, we can put in a number and do a lookup. I'll just start with this and say, I'm going to look up this number and instead of giving a whole table and giving the column in that table, what you do is you select the column and then you put a comma and then you put the return column. So you select a column that is going to be where you look up the value, and then you return this column and it's separated from it. If I hit enter, 14 is Land Rover. But here's the beauty of it. Instead of looking up here, I can look it up over here. So it's not even in the same table, but it is relative to it. So I can still get an answer relative to that. 14 over here returns Bentley. So you see how those are aligned? So that's one thing about it, that you can decouple where that location is of what you're returning, as long as it has the same number. I've got the same number of rows here. If I changed this to be this and hit enter, I would get a value error because these two are not the same length. But if I correct this one to include one more row, then it will give me Mazda for 14. And if I look at 14, that's returning to me what I looked up, which is 14, and in the corresponding column, which is Mazda. I could also have chosen the thing to the left. If I chose this, then 14 would return UK. So this is the beauty of XLOOKUP, and it's very exciting for those of us who lived through the challenges of VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP to have this XLOOKUP that could be either way. You also could change this to use the horizontal. I could choose this as the source for where I'm looking up, and then I can choose this for where I want it to return from. And you see how I get Land Rover here because it's finding it here, finding 14, and then choosing it from there, regardless of its being vertical or horizontal. The XLOOKUP still works. And again, if I pasted the countries up here above the numbers and did a lookup to that row, if I change this to 1, then my 14 brings back UK. So that's VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, and XLOOKUP. Next, we're going to look at index. See you then.